Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Susie, that is crazy, but not as crazy as the time I found out that my husband was having an affair with my mother.
Hey beautiful people, how you are doing today? It's your girl Destiny here and welcome back to my channel. How you are doing? Hope you guys are doing great. So this video is a very messy video, guys. It's a very messy video. So this video is a video of a woman who came online to talk about her finding out that her mom was sleeping with her husband. So her husband was cheating on her with her mom. And it got a little bit like intense and all that, and she shared the story. What started all this conversation was this woman posting this picture. There's this sound on TikTok, people saying, oh, we're exposing cheaters and all that, like cheaters, where are you cheaters, something like that. And she posted this image and said, I heard we were exposing our husband's mistresses. And then she went on to say, my mother. And that just got everybody talking. But one thing that got a lot of people like really was you see the doors there? I don't know where to point it. You saw the two doors there, like monkey doors. Yeah, that got everybody talking. And this sister decided to come online to explain to us what's really going on and how a mom slept with her husband. Anyway, guys, let's go hear her story, her telling what the meaning of those two monkey doors are, which would shock you, okay, what that means, and how she found out that her husband and her mom were kicking it. Anyway, guys, let's go check out this video, then we'll come back and talk.
What is that on your bed?
Yeah. The monkey dolls.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So as I briefly mentioned in my last video, my daughters were born when I was only 29 weeks pregnant. So they spent roughly the first 3 months of their life in the NICU. And this was in 2021 where COVID protocols were still very strict. So the only visitors that were allowed to meet and see my daughters were myself and their father. Nobody else was allowed to come visit them. And my mother did not handle this very well. And so she ended up going online and searching for reborn dolls to purchase to cope with not being able to meet her twin granddaughters. Now, why are they monkeys?
Exactly.
In her words, well, they're half Mexican, so I figured if I got monkey dolls, they would look more like your daughters. And during this very stressful time for me, not knowing if my daughters were even going to make it or not, I was also dealing with my mother texting, calling, or FaceTiming me every hour on the hour, wanting to see and hear updates regarding the babies. If I ever did not respond promptly enough, my father would then start reaching out to me saying, please respond to your mom. Please send her a picture. Please send her a video. Please answer her FaceTimes. She won't get out of bed. She's so distressed that she hasn't seen the babies in over an hour. She won't eat. Like, please answer your mom. Okay. So eventually she ended up getting these dolls. And according to my dad, she slept with them. She would carry them around the house. She would cuddle with them while she watched TV. And she would call them my daughters' names, like she named them after my daughters. So that photo that I used in the first video was a photo taken of her while my daughters were still in the NICU. When my babies finally got to come home from the hospital, my mother brought the baby monkey dolls to my house as a welcome home gift to my daughters. She said at this point they can just have them, and as they grow up they can play with them. I immediately hid them in the closet because no thanks, those are creepy.
Here is a better view of what these creepy things look like.
Okay.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Susie, that is crazy, but not as crazy as the time I found out that my husband was having an affair with my mother while I was also dealing with severe postpartum depression after giving birth to twins when I was only 29 weeks pregnant. Their affair lasted roughly 4 months before I finally definitively caught them red-handed. And the story of how I found out, that needs its own video. But when I did confirm that the affair was happening, I left immediately with my children. And the night that I left with my daughters, my mother moved into my house with my husband. And they continued to play house until I served my husband with divorce papers that also stated I would be filing for 100% custody of our children. During this time, my husband and my mother were conspiring about how they can go about getting married and therefore having my mother be my children's stepmom and having my children be my stepsisters. But alas, my husband got tired of her too, so he dumped her, kicked her out of the house, and she went crawling back to my dad, who welcomed her with open arms. So to this day, my parents act like the affair never happened, and in their words, the affair never would have happened if Catherine wasn't such a horrible daughter and horrible wife. I haven't spoken to them in almost 2 years now. But yeah, Susie, putting extra garlic in your pesto is just like genius. So how did I find out that my husband was sleeping with my mom? If you are one of the millions of people that have commented this on my videos, this is the video that's going to answer that. This is a really long story, so hopefully I can get all of this in one video, but if it starts to get too much, I might have to break it up into at least a couple videos. Okay, so first I should probably talk about some of the red flags that I saw before I actually definitively found out that the affair was happening. So one thing that kind of shifted and changed in their behavior was that when they would greet each other hello or say goodbye, instead of it being like a side, like pat, 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 like hello, goodbye, she would like wrap her arms around his neck and he would like swing her around in a circle to like say hello. He also started giving my mom foot rubs in front of me. On Valentine's Day, 2 days before I found out about the affair, he brought home flowers for me and for my mom. But the biggest red flag is that on multiple occasions, with multiple witnesses, my mother and ex-husband would say, you know, if Catherine and her dad ever were to tragically pass away simultaneously, we would totally end up together. So Catherine, how did you not cut ties with your mother and your husband right then and there the first time it was said? Because I'm an idiot. Because I was brainwashed my entire childhood by that woman. I don't know. I'm dumb. I know. Hindsight, dude, 2020. So that's just like a handful of red flags. So why didn't I ever say anything? Why didn't I ever bring it up to my mom or my husband? Because I didn't want to believe it was happening. I didn't want to accept that the two people I trusted the most in this whole world could betray me like that. So I would make up any excuse I could for their behavior. I didn't want to believe it. But I finally knew I wasn't crazy when my grandmother, my mom's mother, came to me and expressed that she had a feeling something was going on between my mom and my husband. I'm so sorry to do this, but I'm going to make a part 2. Okay, here is part 2 of how I ultimately caught my husband having an affair with my mother. Also, this comment was left by my fully biological sister that my parents conceived when they were in high school and gave up for adoption. So if you want more on the story of her and my relationship with her, let me know. So my grandmother came to me and she had expressed that she had witnessed some odd behavior between my mother and my husband. Kind of similar stuff to how I described in the last video that I had witnessed. And when she told me this, I mean, part of me was absolutely crushed. But the other part of me felt so validated to know that I wasn't crazy and that I wasn't the only one seeing these things. So I asked her, what do I do? Do I confront them? Do I ask them? Because in my head, I still didn't want to believe that something was happening. And sure, everything that was happening was insanely inappropriate, but it doesn't outright 100% prove that an affair is happening. I know. Obviously it was. But I didn't have proof. And for me, it's like I did not want to make those accusations if I didn't have cold, hard evidence. So my grandma, bless her heart, she encouraged me that the truth always comes to light. And she encouraged me to just sit and wait. And I wasn't sure if I was going to follow that advice. But turns out I didn't have to, because that night I got proof. Okay, so it's February of 2022, and a couple months prior, my husband had been fired from his job. And so in order to pay the mortgage, he was door dashing. And anytime that he would DoorDash, he would always let me know what time frame he planned on doing that for. And if he ever planned on running later than he first initially told me, he'd let me know, hey, I'm going to work later than I thought. This was never an expectation that I asked for. It was just something that he created. So I always knew when he was working and when to expect him home so I could have dinner ready. So that night he had told me that he'd be home around 9, and when 9:30 came around and I hadn't heard from him, I reached out to him. Specifically, I FaceTimed him. So he answered, and I asked him what time he thought he would be home and if I needed to have dinner ready for him or if I could just go to bed. He had expressed that he had lost track of time and didn't realize how late it had gotten and that he would be heading home soon. He said, don't worry about dinner, I'll just hit a drive-thru on the way home. Now, as he's talking, I'm paying attention to the background. He's in his car, but he's parked. And I notice out his driver's side window, the buildings behind him. And I realize that I recognize them. But I recognize them as being in the city we live in, not the city that he says he was in. So I go, hey, I thought you said you were in this city. And he's like, oh yeah, I am. So I should be home in about 20 minutes. And I go, no, you're not. I can see that building behind you and you're in this city that we live in. And his face goes white. And so we go back and forth arguing about where he is or where he isn't. And finally, he admits that he's exactly where I said he was. And I go, why are you lying? This is so weird. Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, I can't make out what was said, but I could hear a woman's voice. And he turns over to his passenger seat as if listening to that voice speaking. And I go, who are you with? And he says, I'm not with anyone. And I say, I just heard someone talk. Who are you with? And he hung up on me. I'm so sorry. I'm going to make a part 3. Okay, but here we go. Here's the story. Here's part 3. Okay, so I left off in the last video saying that he hung up on me when I had asked him who he was with. And as soon as he hangs up the phone, my heart is just like beating out of my chest. So I take a few minutes to literally have a panic attack and cry and process that I think I'm right. Oh my gosh, he's having an affair. Is it my mom? Is it somebody else? I'm freaking out. So I FaceTime him again and he answers. And I again am just asking him, what is going on? Why are you lying? I know you're with somebody. I'm not stupid. And he accuses me of being crazy and not trusting him and that he's given me no reason to not trust him. And is just gaslighting me. So then I say, show me the passenger seat. And he says, no. And he hangs up on me again. So then I cry and I freak out even more, collect myself, and I call him again on FaceTime. And I am like, what the is happening? Like, if you're not hiding anything, why won't you just show me? If I'm crazy, then just show me and prove yourself correct. And so, mind you, my crying panic attack episode lasted a few minutes before I called him again. So this time when I'm saying all of this, he's like, okay, fine, I'll show you. Turns the camera to his passenger seat. Sure enough, it's empty. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you just expect me to believe that during that time you hung up on me, that she didn't just get out of your car and she's hiding outside right now? So he just continues to say that I'm crazy and says, I'll be home soon. I'll talk to you later, and hangs up on me again. So at this point, I'm like 99% sure that it's my mom. I just have this gut feeling. I had just talked to my grandmother that morning about the situation. Like, I'm 99% sure, but I wanted to be 100% sure. So then I decided to call my little sister because she was still living at home with our parents at the time.
Through my tears, I managed to get the words out that I'm trying to say, and I ask her if our mom is home. And she goes, I don't know, I'm in bed, like it's late at night, what's going on? Are you okay? Are the babies okay? And I said, I really just need you to do me a favor and find out if mom is home. And she goes, why? What's going on? And I say, sister, I really need you to go find out if mom is home. And she goes, okay, I don't want to keep this from you. Your husband came by earlier tonight and picked mom up to take her door dashing with him, and they told me not to tell you. And that confirms that I was right, that they were together. So I'm hysterical, and I'm crying, and I'm telling my sister, they're having an affair, sister, they're having an affair. And of course she goes, what? No, they're not. They would never do that, Catherine. Like, no, don't think that way. They love you. That's our mom. That's your husband. Like, no. It's just a misunderstanding. Because of course you don't want to believe that that's actually really happening. But I knew that I was right. Because of my little sister, I finally had my 100% guarantee. I knew they were together. So this time I called my mom. She didn't answer, so I called her again and again and again, and I called her 8 times. And when she finally answered, she goes, what, Catherine? And again, through my weeping, I just said to her, just tell me why. And she goes, why what? And I said, you know what? And I can hear my husband in the background saying, put it on speaker, put it on speaker. So I hear her muffle with her phone to put it on speaker. And then she goes, tell you why I'm with your husband. And then she goes on this rant about how she had a really bad day today, and my husband had reached out to her earlier to see how she was doing, and after she told him, he went to go pick her up to get her out of the house to have some fresh air, and there's nothing wrong with that. I then addressed my husband because I knew I was on speakerphone, and I let him know that before he took her home, they both needed to get to our house so the 3 of us could have a chat. So eventually they got to the house, and when they walked in, they tried to come hug me, and I told them, do not touch me. And I looked both of them dead in their eyes, and I said, are you two fucking together? Without even so much as moving a muscle in his face, my husband looks at me and says, no. And my mother says, I would never cross that boundary. But of course I knew the truth. I knew. Even without them admitting it, I knew. So I ended up telling my mom to get the hell out of my house. And I went to bed. I didn't sleep, but I went to bed. It was not until the next day that they finally decided to come clean and admit that they were, in fact, having an affair. Okay, you guys are going to be mad at me, but I'm going to have to make a part 4. My story is so long, you guys, like hours long. And I just can't fit all of that into TikTok. I can't do it. It has been a very overwhelming last few days with all of the attention I've been getting. And I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful for all of you guys for listening to my story and hearing me and validating me. But it's a lot. So it is midnight right now as I'm filming this because I really wanted to try to get this part 3 out to you guys. And I promise you I'm going to make a part 4 tomorrow, but I'm not going to promise you how long it's going to take me. But I will put out a part 4. So stay tuned. Okay, you guys, this is part 4 of how I ultimately caught my husband having an affair with my mother. So the next day I had to get out of the house and I just had to talk to somebody, anybody. And I had decided to reach out to my older sister, not the one that is adopted and not my baby sister, my older sister. I went to her house and she lives just down the street from me. And so I went to go fill her in on the previous night. During that conversation, she had revealed to me that she had witnessed some inappropriate behavior between my mother and my husband as well. On Christmas Day, just a couple months prior, the whole entire family had spent Christmas at our parents' house. And at one point during the day, when my sister had walked into the kitchen, she walked in on my mother leaned over the counter, clothed, but with my husband's groin pressed up against her behind. But I was just barely hearing about it for the first time right then and there. Anyway, I cried with her for a couple hours before I told her I have to leave. I have to go talk to our dad now. Like, he needs to know what's going on. So I texted my dad and I told him that I needed to talk to him immediately, and he agreed to meet up with me. When we were finally together, I told him I don't know how to say this without just saying it, so that's all I can do. And I said, I believe that Mom and my husband are having an affair. And I expected him to be shocked, surprised, confused, angry, sad, something of the sort. But he wasn't. He said, you need to go talk to your husband because today he's going to tell you the truth. And I said, what does that mean? Do you know something that I don't know? And again, he said, you need to go talk to your husband because today he's going to tell you the truth. So now I'm realizing that my dad already knows. Did my mother, when she finally went home the previous night, talk to him about it? Did she talk to him about it today before I talked to him about it? Like, why is he beating around the bush and not having a fucking conversation with me about it? But I was not about to go confront my ex-husband alone without support, because if what I thought was happening, I was going to need help. So my father, my older sister, my younger sister, and my grandmother met me at my house so that they could be with the babies while I confronted my husband. Luckily, I was smart enough to pull up my phone and hit record before our conversation began. And he admitted to the whole affair. He admitted to everything. In detail, he told me about how horrible of a wife and a mom that I was, and that he deserves better. He had no remorse. In fact, he seemed proud. And after he admitted to having an affair with my mom in my bed, he immediately began to talk about how we were going to split custody and what we were going to do with the house, and he revealed to me all the credit card debt that he had racked up that I had no idea about. He had it all planned out. Ooh, I did not think I'd start crying. I don't cry about this a lot anymore because I've had a lot of time to process it. But the last few days have been overwhelming. A lot of people have asked, how is your relationship with your mom? And not that going through this could ever be easy. Ever. But I think it'd be so different had we been estranged or didn't have a relationship. But my mom was my best friend. So anyway, after I recorded that whole conversation, I realized, that this is my life, this is happening. And I've got two precious babies that I need to protect from growing up in an environment that my husband and mother were going to provide. So I had texted my family that was downstairs watching the girls to get the girls and leave immediately. I don't care where you go right now. Let me know where you're at, but you need to get the girls out of this house. He told me that if he couldn't stand me, he could leave, but that he was not going to leave his house, that this was his house. So I knew that I had to go because I wasn't going to argue with him. So I packed the 3 suitcases that I own with the absolute necessities that my daughters and I would need. Mind you, at this point, they were 11 months old. Eventually found out that they were at my grandma's house, who also lives just down the street. And then, like I said before, my mom moved in that same night too. So that is the story of how I caught my husband having the affair and my mom having the affair and how I found out. I promise I have been reading so many of your guys' comments and reading your questions, and I have been saving them and writing them down, and I plan to answer all your questions. So there are more videos to come on my story, but this is the final part of how they were caught. I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone who has been so kind and so supportive of me. I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful, and I'm not gonna start crying again. That's so embarrassing. But seriously, thanks. Thank you for supporting me in finally using my voice, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
This got people talking. People have their thought about this story. So let's go hear other people's thoughts on this story. Then I'll come back and share my own thought. So go down in the comment section and share your thought. I'd love to know what you think.
Yep, we found out that our husband was sleeping with our mother.
Go back and watch his entire video. It is a green screen of a full situation that happened between a young woman, her husband, her mother, and her father, in which her husband started having an affair with her mother, okay? And then when she decided to move out and filed for divorce, the mom moved into her house with her husband. Okay, and when they didn't work out, the mom then went back to this woman's dad, and he took her back. And then in the end, they blamed the daughter, said she was a horrible daughter and a horrible wife. You know, there's a lot of dirt and grime that happens in the world, but to people that have close family and friends, and they decide to dabble in that dirt within the family or within close proximity to people's friends, you are like next level evil. Okay, there are so many people on the planet that you can choose to cheat with, that you can choose to confide in and run off and bash your spouse, whatever it is that you need to do. But for those that like to do it within, they like to get close to you. They like to go for what's, you know, most precious to you. They have some deep-rooted envy and hatred towards you. Yeah. Man. This reminds me of a story from like a long, long time ago where, you know, some friends of some friends of some friends, there were some marriages that broke down, and this happens all the time. You hear about it all the time, but you had a couple of best friends, and, you know, one of the best friends decided to date her friend's husband. And the reason that she did that was because she knew that her girl was messing around. Okay, so she harbored some really terrible secrets for her friend. But again, this is her friend, and she used that against her. And she decided to then go after the girl's husband. Messy. I mean, messy. And now those two are married. So her friend lost the guy. She picked him up, and they've been married happily ever after. It's one of those things where you just lose all trust in humanity. Not that I'm saying that the friend should have covered up for her dirty deeds, but when you are so desperate that you have to slink into someone's already ready-made scene because you have intel, right? A lot of times, you know, you already know the dirt that's going on in that family. You're using it against them. That's low. Okay, you already probably know their kids. You maybe have hung out with their family. You're involved in an intimate way, and you use that to try to sneak in. Low, desperate, horrible. And trust me, people look at you like that. Don't think that anyone who's around you that's like, oh yeah, it's okay, you know, these things happen. No, you're the butt of everyone's joke, and nobody trusts you. I mean, this story that I'm stitching here is obviously like beyond anything I could ever possibly imagine. You know, you're supposed to be able to trust your own parents, right? And when you can't trust, I mean, many of us, you know, may have had issues with parents in the past, but when it gets to the point where, you know, that person is backstabbing you and it's your own parent, it's crazy. You know what? There comes a time where you have to snip your own blood, and that's okay, because just because you're blood does not mean you're a family.
Exactly.
these moms are really out here in competition with their daughters. So the same thing happened to me, but it's like a little more complicated than that. So my ex-sister-in-law walked in to my mom's house and found my mom in bed with my baby daddy. And so then they denied it at first, and my mom said she was too drunk and she didn't remember. And then it's just turned into a whole bunch of stories like that have changed. And you know, when someone's story changes, most of the time they're lying. So I told my mom I wanted therapy with her, you know, figure out why this happened, like, you know, because either way it's inappropriate. And she don't want to get therapy because I'm pretty sure she can't look a therapist in the eye and lie to the therapist because the therapist is gonna know. She's done so much fucked up shit to me, it's not even funny. But anyways, that's why she's cut off.
Please go down in the comment section and share your thoughts. Love to know what you think about this conversation down in the comment section. But please keep it respectful. Here on the channel, we're allowed to disagree, but we'll do it in a respectful way. For me, these type of stories are really so messy. Like messy. I feel like when people show you who they are, whether they are your parents, family, like when people genuinely show you who they are, they even give you any sign of envy. For me, this is where you go no contact with them. Like I've always preached here on this channel, on this page, like when people show you who they are, let's not make excuses for them. Be it our family, our close friends. When people show you who they really are, don't make excuses. Ask yourself if you're ready to deal with it. If you're not ready to deal with it, just go. And I agree that some parents, not a lot, some parents, especially mothers, are envious of their daughter and what their daughter, especially when the daughter is able to build a beautiful life for herself. Maybe after a lot of trauma they've passed on to her, she's able to build something beautiful. Some mothers are. We've seen a video, I posted a video sometime, I think last year, of a mother that shaved her teenage daughter's hair because her teenage daughter thinks she's pretty. For you to hurt somebody that you consider family, somebody you consider close, hurt that person like that, you betray that person like that, like the other sister said, you're just devil in a different form. Like, that's what you are. Of all the people you can choose to mess around with, you choose the one that is going to betray somebody you claim you love or somebody you consider as family. That's low. Anyway, guys, please go down in the comment section and share your thoughts. Love to know what you think about this conversation down in the comment section. But please keep it respectful. You're on the channel, we're allowed to disagree, but we'll do it in a respectful way. Go ahead and share this video with somebody that you want to be part of the conversation, because that's what we do here. We have banging conversation. So go ahead and share this video. With that all said, guys, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, smash the like button, because this helps YouTube to push out my content for more people to see, and that will be you supporting your girl. With that all said, guys, I will see you guys in my next video. Deuces.